Hello friends, welcome back to the vlog. Today is actually my wedding anniversary. We are on our 6-year wedding anniversary. We've been together for 9 years-ish. Like we went on our first date 9 years ago. But we got married 6 years ago today that this goes live. So I'm so excited. I knew I wanted to do some sort of like marriage themed video. I wasn't sure if we would do a Q&A or something like that, but then I got a request in on Instagram for us to talk about our marriage meetings. And I thought this is a really good opportunity for us to do that. So we are going to talk about one of the things that I think makes our marriage run really smoothly and brings a lot of ease into kind of our interpersonal dynamics, and that is our weekly marriage meeting. Now, these meetings take lots of different forms and have taken lots of forms over the course of our relationship. It really is based off of what we need at the time. Sometimes we need to just have like a quick check-in. Sometimes we're like, we have a goal that we're sharing together, and so we want to like really work on that. But in general, the goal of these meetings are for us to have a time where we sit down and we just get on the same page about what the week looks like. So there are things that we pretty much address every single week, and then there are things that we have done seasonally, and I want to go through each of those things. So one, to give you ideas for things that you could do in your marriage meetings, but also just to share the ever-changing way that this works for us, so that you don't think that we came up with the concept of having a marriage meeting like 5 years ago and we just haven't changed it since. It's not like that. It's like we often will go through seasons where we're not having them and we go, whoa, we need to get back to having our meetings, because those meetings, again, they bring us so much ease. They put us on the same team, and it's honestly, life is just much more peaceful when we have them. So I'm going to go through things we discuss, why we discuss them, and then what that kind of looks like for us in list forms. The first one for us are our schedules. This is pretty much what we always do. It's our constant. It just helps us to have a sense of like what to expect for the week. This was particularly helpful when Obi was in school, because it really helped me to know what things he had on his plate, if he had meetings, when his classes were, what his work schedule was like that week, and then also like, did he have a bunch of tests or a paper due or things that would take time away from me or from the kiddo, just so that I would know what to expect. This is really helpful if you want to have a sense of like, what is our time going to be like together? Like, if you're really, really busy this week, then I'm going to lower my expectations. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to do what I need to do for me, so that you can have the space that you need to do what you need to do for you. Some weeks we can like really focus on our bond and like getting together, but some weeks we're just busy. So if we can have a sense of like, what do my meetings look like? What do his meetings look like? What is our kind of general week plan? That can help a ton with just managing expectations, but also identifying who's doing what when. So if we have kid drop off and kid pickup, we know, okay, if Sarah Jane has an early meeting Tuesday morning and Obi doesn't have to work, then he's probably going to do kiddo drop off, right? And vice versa. So we kind of have a sense of who's doing drop off, who's doing pickup. We try to make that pretty balanced if we can. Some weeks we can, some weeks we can't, but it gives us a really strong sense of what's ahead of us this week, who's in charge of what, and when do I have time to, when do I need to be focused on myself, so that you can have time to do what you need to do for you. Within that, there are a few things that we like to keep in mind, right? Kid drop off and pick up. The other thing is who's cooking dinner. So generally we're kind of on our own for breakfast and lunch, but who's taking care of dinner? That is based off of our work schedules. If I have a really late night, Obi's going to take care of dinner. If he's working nights, then I'm going to take care of dinner. Some nights we're like, both of us are exhausted, let's plan a takeout night that night. And that means that before the week starts, we know who's in charge of what dinner. If we're doing a meal delivery service, right now we're doing EveryPlate, which is like $1.49 per meal right now, because I have like a coupon from the podcast. So it's like really, really affordable. I'll try and remember to link it in the comments if you're interested. But right now we do EveryPlate, so we don't have to meal plan. We don't have to think about like, what are we getting, what are we not getting. We just show up, we pick the meal we're going to cook that night. Meals usually take like 30 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, and we're good to go. We don't have to think about it. If we're not doing a meal delivery kit, Typically I just like whoever's cooking does their own groceries. So I do the groceries for the house for the week, but he will go if he's cooking dinner that night and he has a bunch of ingredients he wants to get, he'll just go to the store and grab the ingredients for the dinner he's making. We save a ton of money doing the meal kit just because I'm a 7 and he's a 4, honestly. And we go to the grocery store, we buy all the things that make us happy and feel really fun and artistic and exciting. And so yeah, that's helpful. All right. The other thing we might talk about during that time is when are we going to hang out together? When are we going to have a date night? Sometimes we like a morning date. I think that's actually probably our best date is a morning date. But we just plan a time. When are we going to be together this week? Do we have time for that? Especially during our busiest seasons. How are we going to prioritize time together? We also in that time discuss our meal plan and our grocery list. So again, if we don't have a meal kit, I might talk through that time. What things do I need to get from the store for you for breakfast this week? What things do we want for lunch? Anything you know that we need for the kiddo or that we're out of? And we'll make that kind of rough list together, and then I'll go through and make the like final list. But if there's anything on his mind, I'll try to ask him during that time because we're already talking about things. Also at this time, depending on different seasons of our lives, if we have real financial goals, we talk about money, we talk about what are the balances in all of our accounts. Do we have like credit cards that we need to make a payment on? What are our goals? What are our savings goals? For a while there, we had like some like really intense family financial meetings, and we would go, okay, how much am I transferring to savings? And we would transfer it right then. We went through a whole meeting where we went through all of our accounts and just canceled things that we didn't want to be paying for anymore and kind of said, do we still want Hulu? No. Okay, let's cancel that. So that has been really helpful. Next year, I think we're doing like a pretty intense financial year. Like I think we're doing like a low spend year. I don't know what that looks like yet. But we'll probably have financial meetings at least once a month, if not every meeting, just to renew the excitement and energy for this thing that maybe neither of us really want to do, but we think would benefit us in the long run, you know? The other thing that we schedule in at this time is when are we getting our self-care? So I love the question, when are you taking care of yourself this week? This is particularly useful to talk about with your partner so that you can be on the same page. So let's say, okay, you want to take self-care Thursday evening, but the kiddo has a cross-country meet that night. So that's actually not a time that we're going to be able to do that because we both are going to want to be there. But maybe, what's another night this week? We can really problem solve together so that we're looking out for each other's ability to have self-care. It's a priority to both of us that each of us get self-care, and then we take that time to really schedule it in, prioritize it, and treat it as like sacred, non-negotiable time so that we're both taken care of, because like we love each other better when we're taken care of. We love our kiddo better when we're taken care of. It's important. So if we can make that a priority and then we can make sure to ask each other about that, it makes things run more smoothly, and it helps us to get the time, especially if you're the kind of person who is quick to use your partner as an excuse to not take self-care. This really takes that excuse away and puts you guys on the same team and says, okay, what time are you taking self-care this week? Get an hour, get 2 hours, get 3 if you can, whatever you need. Like, let's find a space for you to be free and get to just use your time however you want. Other things you can use this time for are like marital bonding. like, what do you have any like lingering hurts or unresolved conflicts that we should talk about? This is amazing. This came from the book Seven Principles of I never remember the title of this book, like John Gottman, Seven Principles of a Good Marriage, some kind of marriage. And in that book, he talks about kind of having these certain like touch points of connection. So hug each other when you leave the house, hug each other when you get home, having a weekly check-in where you kind of deal with those unresolved conflicts and also kind of share appreciation and kind of connect. Obi and I are personally the kind of people who address conflict right away. We're just like, neither of us are particularly conflict avoidant. It's very rare that we have conflict that goes unresolved. So if either of us were like more adverse to conflict and are the type to kind of sweep things under a rug and like let resentment build, then I would want this in our weekly meeting. I would want to be able to say, hey, there's this thing that happened this week that I am unsettled about and I'd like to discuss. Additionally, using that time as well to add in, here's something you did this week that meant a lot to me. Here's something I really appreciated, can connect. We've also gone through seasons where we've done guided journals. We had a shared calendar for a while that was like a family marriage calendar where we would do like things we're grateful for, things we're hoping for, our main priorities for the week. We've also done, we have like these discussion cards. We've gone through seasons where we've done those, where we just want to feel really, maybe we're both really busy that season and we don't have a ton of time to just really bond and connect and go deep. And if that's the case, that might be how we use that time together. One of my favorite questions that we ask each other during these meetings is, how can I support you this week? What do you need this week, and how can I be a good partner to you? This gives us a lot of information. Maybe you find patterns of things that you continuously say, so you know this is what being a good partner means to me. But also maybe it just gives you an opportunity to say, like, really reflect and go ask for help if you're the kind of person who maybe struggles to ask for help. But also sometimes we like, oh, I've got it. I don't actually need much from you. And therefore, expectations are kind of managed and expectations are set for what we need this week. This doesn't mean that like we never give each other something that we didn't request, right? Like I'm still available to him as a partner all week long, but it does give a sense of, oh, I need to keep an eye out for this particular thing so that he can feel supported and I can feel supported by the one that we love. One of my other favorite things is helping each other with our personal goals and projects. So maybe we can talk out, okay, I need to schedule time in this week to train for a half marathon, if that's something I want to do. Maybe we're building out a business or a personal project and we just need help like kind of charting it out. We'll just take that time together to talk about our personal projects, when we're going to prioritize that, what we're going to do this week for those things, so that we're kind of like helping each other along with our own goals outside of like marital goals, but just the things that we really want to be doing in our life. Because when we're doing the things we want to be doing in our life, our marriages are better. We're nourishing like more holistically. We're not just like talking about like, how do I feel about you? Because that is impacted by all these other things, right? The ease that we have with the kiddos, like routine, the amount of self-care we're getting, the amount of time we feel like we have for the things that matter to us outside of this home, right? Taking into consideration the context of our interactions. If Obi's having a really busy week and I don't feel like I'm getting enough time with him, like having that context for, oh, he's like really stressed right now. It's not about me. I can pause and take that less personally, and vice versa, right? So all of this is kind of looking at all of these things impact our household, they impact us, and it puts us both in the position to be in charge of the house, so that one of us isn't just feeling like they're the house manager all the time. We are both on the same team. We have a plan. We're talking about it together, and then we can tackle all the house things as a team rather than it being someone's job to assign those tasks to the other person. So yes, looking at it holistically, everything is impacting our marriage, but also how can we be on the same team to get all of the family things accomplished. So that's how we use this time. I want to talk about tips for if you want to start a marriage meeting, what can that look like and how do we begin? So in order to do that, I think I'm going to walk us through just step by step. If I were starting fresh, how would I do this from the beginning if I've never had a marriage meeting before? Okay, I would start simple, one thing each. So each of you pick one area of your life that you would like to work on. Maybe you would like to streamline it, your meal planning. Maybe you would like to have a better sense of what to expect from your partner that week. Maybe you need help making time for self-care, and so you want to prioritize that. Maybe you have personal goals that you want to work on. Like, decide what area of your life is important to you. Now, I say each of you pick one so that you're both invested in these meetings, right? So you pick the one that's important to you, have your partner pick the one that's important to them, and take each other's desires seriously, and then choose how you'll discuss it. So if you are like, okay, I want to deal with finances. So since you want to deal with finances, you're in charge of what you discuss around finances. That doesn't mean that your partner can't contribute ideas or thoughts, but it just means like that's your thing to own. So you come to the table and you say, I want to talk about our balance in our accounts, our retirement plan, our savings plan, our cards, and our bills every single week. This is really important to me. Maybe your partner says, I really need to talk about self-care. I would like to take time to schedule each of our self-care in and talk about what self-care we will do each week. And then maybe we follow up and report back the next week about what our self-care was and how it went. So you each bring one, you own that thing, and then you can always build or adjust from there, but at least you have a sense of, okay, this is what's important to me right now. While we're building this habit, we're each addressing something that's important to us. And then choose when and where this is going to happen. So pick a time of day, pick a day of the week that is relatively consistent. So maybe you don't do it every single Sunday. Maybe some days you do it on Saturday if you have something going on Sunday, but generally you say this, 2 p.m. on Sunday is the time we do this. We keep it sacred and we don't schedule things in there if we have any other options because this is important. Where maybe your living room, it may be your dining room, it may be a coffee shop if that feels more exciting to you all. Whatever you need to do to make it a comfortable, fun experience where you feel like you can have these conversations. I like to do them at home just because they feel sometimes private, but also like a coffee shop could be a real motivator for me during seasons where I felt like there were things I maybe wanted to avoid. If I could make it a fun experience, that could support me. So whatever works for you, pick when, where, and what time, and try to keep that as consistent as possible. Okay, the next element that I would do if I were starting all over is to set a time limit. Because if we're getting into this and we think this could take the rest of my day, if I'm going to sit here talking about money and bills and schedules for the rest of my Sunday, that is really demotivating, right? It takes the fun out of it. This thing that could be really connecting and bonding, it makes it feel like a chore. So determine how long these meetings are going to last. I mean, an hour is very reasonable. Just say, okay, we're going to give ourselves an hour once a week to sit down and talk about things. Set a timer, commit to ending at that hour. That way, like this is really helpful, especially if you have a partner who is maybe a little resistant to doing these meetings, because if they know, okay, I'm committing to an hour, it will always only be an hour. I'm not going to accidentally end up in like a 3 or 4 hour long conversation about something that kind of consumes my weekend. Instead, just kind of say, all right, every week it's an hour. And we have to end at that hour. Maybe one of us wants to extend. No, we end at the hour. Like this is our commitment to it, to the process, so that we know every single week we can show up and we can do this because it's just always an hour long. In my humble opinion, there should be no phones unless you need phones for a certain task, right? Like when you're doing like a bill meeting or something and you check your counts. But otherwise, like I'm a big fan of like, don't bring the phones to the meeting so that you both are present, fully engaged, which brings me to everyone has a role. So if I were doing this over again, I would have each of us owning elements, right? Like one of you brings the thing you need that you're in charge of. In that case, you're leading that meeting essentially. And then your partner is engaged in taking notes and writing down the things you discuss so that you're both fully engaged, right? One of you is leading the meeting on the thing that they brought to the table. The other one is fully engaged, taking notes, responding, listening, asking questions. You don't want it to feel like you're dragging your partner to this meeting, you're pulling it out of them. And then it's just kind of like, now I've added like more emotional labor to my plate and I am feeling even more like the house manager. That's not the goal. The goal is like, we're partners, we're in this together, we're both actively participating. And in order to do that, I think it's helpful that we know what participation means at any given moment. And then finally, have fun with it. Like I know I'm saying like, give it a timer because you don't want this to take your whole day, but it is fun. Like this is the person you chose to spend your life with. Like this is so fun. And it can turn some of these like more boring household things into games of like, okay, we're setting some goals together. We're going to like streamline it. We're going to have fun with it. It's kind of like gamifying life a little bit. So enjoy it in that way. You don't have to make it this like some business meeting where you're just kind of running through a list of tasks. Some of us that might work well, right? Like, let's just get it done. But others, it might be more beneficial to say, how can we make this a fun, engaging time where we're just making a better life for ourselves, because that's ultimately the goal of these meetings, is to have more ease, more peace, more teamwork in this day-to-day of doing life. So I hope this is supportive. Thank you all so much for being here. And I will see you next time for another one.